Today, we're going to talk about pricing your services, but specifically what to say and do when a new lead says, hey, what does it cost to hire you? This episode of Ask Joe is brought to you by the 10X Freelance Copywriter. We answer questions like this in the 10X FC private community all the time. Kristina asks, I often run into a similar question and an uncomfortable for me exchange on early calls with potential clients. What are your rates? To which I reply that I work on a per project basis and develop a custom quote for each project once I have a solid understanding of its specific requirements. Okay, Kristina then goes on to say they're basically pushing for a ballpark or a sample price for X type of project or an hourly rate. What should Kristina do? Okay, this is a very, very good question, a very common question, actually. And so there are a couple ways to handle it. There are actually quite a lot of ways to handle it, but let's go through six ways to handle this question. So what I said to Kristina in our 10XFC group is, hey, we can increase the number or quality of questions that you ask your new lead on that new lead intake form. So on your website, you'll have a form that they have to complete in some way, even if it's just like enter your email address. Usually there'll be more to it than that. And that's the form that I'm talking about. So can you ask more questions up front in order to better understand their problems before you even meet? What you're trying to do in most calls with new leads, like that initial 15-minute call to even see if you should have a longer conversation, you have this 15-minute call. You're determining, what the basic scope of the project is. You're also getting a feel for whether you want to work with this person or these people, for the product, for the audience, if you guys are going to be a good fit, or if you're all are going to be a good fit together. So that's what the 15-minute call is about. But you're also then in scoping the project in that call, like really lightly scoping it, just to get a sense, again, for whether this is even possible to work together. If you can go into the call with a better sense for everything you would need in order to scope that project faster, then that's what you want to do, right? So in that intake form, if you can ask more questions about what's going on that drove them to seek out a freelancer, why they chose you as a freelancer, or why they want to talk to you as a freelancer, really, you're trying to get a sense for what's driving them right now, what that problem is that sent them to you, what the urgency is of the situation, like why now? Why is this important now? Now, in that intake form, I wouldn't ask why now, because intake form questions should generally be pretty short so that you get good responses, but you don't fatigue your lead with like asking all the things that they expect to talk about in a call. So you want to ask enough questions to give you a sense for what the project is going to be like. Now, you'll still want to ask more questions when you get into that 15-minute call. You won't go into that call knowing the scope of the project, knowing how much to charge or any of that sort of thing. But at least if you can get a sense for, hey, Kristina, in this case, we're looking for help with our onboarding emails because we've seen that we're churning out a lot of new users and they're dropping off in our email funnel. Let's say you hear that as a problem. You can now go into this first call with an understanding that, okay, they're talking about SaaS onboarding emails. You could even sign up for their solution beforehand and start receiving those emails so you can get a sense of the cadence, the topics, everything that's going on with them. That would make you better prepared to have a better conversation about price in that 15-minute call. And to be fair, in your 15-minute call, you should make sure they do understand your price. You don't want to leave that first call with you thinking this is going to be a $20,000 project and them thinking we could probably get away with this for $2,000. You don't want that disconnect. So it's a good thing to have that 15-minute call where you do, by the end of it, give a rough estimate of what the project is going to be worth. The more you know going into it, the better you can estimate that. That's number one of 6 things. It can also be helpful to go into a call with the lead, with you having reviewed their website, their emails, their funnels, etc., rather than waiting too much. So I kind of already mentioned that in part 1, but the part 1 is have a better intake form. Part 2 is go through their stuff, like go through and get a sense for opportunities, not only so that you've got an idea of the project they want to work on, but so that you, as a conversion copywriter, so you're involved in conversion rate optimization, performance growth, you can then go in and say, cool, about the onboarding emails, that's great. What I noticed is they all drive to the same place in app. Or what I noticed is none of them are triggered from something someone has done in app. Or what I noticed is when it's time for those onboarding emails to lead you to a place where you convert into a paid user, they're dropped onto the same pricing page that they were on the live website. Why is that? And then you can have those conversations where they might be like, oh yeah, so we could use help with our onboarding emails, with those in-app landing pages. And suddenly now you have a better project to work on too. And you're working in a more consultative sort of way. So the more you've reviewed things up front, the better you can be in that initial conversation. And for everybody who's listening, like, how could I possibly have time to review all this stuff up front? This is one more reason to charge more and one more way to charge more. So you need to have more time available as a freelance copywriter, as a freelance anything, but particularly in this case, as a freelance copywriter, you need time to dedicate to figuring out if a new lead is a good fit for you so that you can go in and be a good consultant for them, not just this person who executes and writes whatever the hell someone says you should write, but like someone who can look at the problem, which is what a conversion copywriter is about, where you look at the problem, you listen, and then you start to develop like hypotheses for different things that you could be doing differently to increase performance against their goals, whatever their goals might be. So in order to have that time, you have to start charging more so that you're not selling every hour in your day. Instead, you are selling a project and you've got time baked into that to think, to exist, to not be sitting at your desk, drumming away, trying to get new business or to churn out copy, or in many cases, just content, right? So the way to be able to be a better freelance copywriter is to charge more so that you have more time for this. Now, in order to charge more, they have to believe, your lead has to believe that you're really, really good at this. And of course, they have to be a good fit lead. So that is a better intake form to better qualify leads. And then once you're on a call with those leads, they need to believe that they're talking to someone who like gets them. So you do need to spend that time up front so that you do get them. And you need to be ready to ask questions, which brings me to the third point that I shared with Kristina, which was a question I asked if Kristina has taken Proposal Bootcamp. So Proposal Bootcamp is something that we offered here at Copyhackers years ago. You can get the replay of it on copyschool.co. And that's a really good, very detailed bootcamp on how to take someone from a lead, someone who's just like submitted a form, you get the email in your inbox that's like new lead, blah, 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 whatever you set up as that the template that you have, which is true for like any lead gen form that you might be using. Once that comes in, what do you do from there all the way through to, okay, I've delivered my proposal, they've accepted it, and now it's time to start actually delivering this project. So even setting up that first kickoff call, which is a big part of getting them to buy in. So there's a whole bunch to this. I recommended to Kristina that she also take Proposal Bootcamp. 3 more things. If this is happening a lot, and this is for you again, if this is happening a lot, you're getting on these calls with new leads and they're jumping really quickly to price. There could be a lot of things that are going on there. But what you might want to do is have, instead of having a new lead intake form at all, instead of having the ability for somebody to just like hop on a call and talk with you, you could start every engagement with a productized service. So if you are a web copywriter, you could have your only call to action across your website as a freelance copywriter, across that website would be to get a website audit. Let's say I'll audit 3 pages of your website for $1,000. You've got a link to buy that all over the place. that could be a really great way to get started because it sets a basic standard for your hourly rate. If I'm going to buy $1,000, $997 website audit off of you, and what I get from that is a really wonderful 60-minute video review of the 3 pages of my website, I have in my brain just paid you $1,000 an hour. I got great value out of it. So that's wonderful. So I'm learning a lot of things. 1, you're not cheap. 2, you know your stuff. 3, I like the way that you did this. I feel good about working with you now. So maybe we should hop on a call and see if we can work together on a bigger website project. So if you can do that, you can, of course, then by doing that, I mean, if you can just start by always selling a productized service, or even go out of that initial 15-minute lead intake call and go like, okay, cool. A great place for us to start is with a website audit. Here's a link to buy that. Explain the thing, do your copywriting stuff to talk them through what the website audit's going to be about, and then kind of leave it there so that you're not jumping right into pricing if you don't feel comfortable talking about pricing yet. All right. So we've got those 4 things so far. Then the 5th and 6th are similar. Number 5, the 5th thing you can do is publish a non-indexed, not search optimized page. So something that's hidden on your site. It's private, but it's public facing so that you can send a direct link to anybody to it. This details your rates for various projects. Now, importantly, what copywriters need to always remember is that we have this very unfair advantage, which is we're copywriters. So our job is to convince people of things, and not in a salesy way, right? Our job is to say, not just, hey, here are my rates on a rate page, which if you were, let's say, a designer who doesn't have a copywriting background, or a developer, or any other type of freelancer out there, an animator, whatever it might be, you might have a rate page that just has your rates listed. As a copywriter, we know this is actually a sales page. This isn't a rate page. We can call it that, but what we're really doing here is matching the problem that they have, agitating the problem that they have, selling them on the dream state, this desirable outcome, telling them how not telling, in the right way, in a copywriterly way, but explaining to them, showing them how their past solutions that they've tried haven't worked, and then selling them on your projects, right? Or your VIP day, or whatever those other things might be that you have on your rate page. But don't just list your rates, importantly. So that's a private page-ish. It's public, but it's hidden, that you could then send out for every new lead as soon as they set up that first call with you. This could be set up in your Calendly, in Advent, whatever tool you might be using. I don't know why you'd use Advent, but any tool you might be using where you can or just if you have a VA, or if you manually schedule your lead intake calls, in the agenda, you just want to put a link to that rate page. That way, if they're looking through the agenda, which they'll probably do just before the call, they'll be like, oh, here, the rates are right here. And then they'll click through, and maybe they're like, oh, damn, these rates are way out to lunch for where we're at, and just cancel the call. Or maybe they'll be like, okay, this is reasonable. Because one thing that we often forget is that the reason our leads are jumping so quickly to how much is this going to cost me is because they have an actual budget. They have an estimate for what this project is going to be worth to them. And they've probably been burned by freelancers before. So they have this budget that's weighing on them. They're like, oh, I've only got $4,000 from the business to work on optimizing these onboarding emails. I'm pretty sure I heard that all great onboarding email copywriters are way more expensive than this. So they're anxious going in, can we even afford you? If you can give them a link to your project rate that really helps them understand what you charge, what that's worth, and why it's so valuable to them, they can better appreciate that and prepare themselves for the call. They're not asking necessarily throughout a call, how much does it cost? What's your ballpark? Just because they're cheap or trying to lowball you or anything like that. Don't jump to that conclusion in case you are jumping to that conclusion. They just want to know what it's going to cost. And it can be an estimate. It doesn't have to be, this will cost you $7,000. A great way to talk about what a thing costs you is projects like this typically costs somewhere between X and Y. So there's these two ranges about can 5,000. I know that, in a simpler world, it can be achieved for $5,000, but it can also go, I've done the same sort of project for 10 grand. So we'll see, but how does that sit with your budget? 5 to 10, somewhere in there. It's usually not going to be that big of a range, by the way. It's usually going to be more like 7 to 8, 7 to 10, something like that. So you've got this private-ish, this hidden rate page. Now, number 6 is make that page public. So you don't have to hide it. Because of that anxiety that a lot of leads have, if you have a page that ranks really well for something most people keep hidden, there's not a lot of copywriters who are posting their rates. So although the search term, what does it cost to hire a copywriter, or what do freelance copywriters charge, or copywriting rates, or anything like that, like go on Ahrefs, look up the best, go wherever do you do your research and look up like the ideal keyword phrases to optimize for. But if you can make this page public, now you've got a way to attract leads who are wondering what things cost. You disqualify those who don't get that it's not free. Like you're going to pay money for the value you're going to get here. Copywriting is scalable online sales. You're not going to get it for cheap. You better not get it for cheap, or if you're getting it for cheap, you better hold on to that person and lock them in at their rate, because eventually they're going to find out, oh, wait, I'm how you make money. But if you can be that person that they go to, knowing that you were transparent about your pricing, that's a good thing. That's going to be a good thing for you. So the 6 easiest ways to go about managing your leads asking, well, how much does it cost in that early call is: number 1, increase the number or quality of questions in that lead intake form. Number 2, go into the call having reviewed the thing that you believe they're going to be working on with you, the whole funnel that they've got there, so you can identify what the project might look like, while also possibly upselling them on other things that they didn't even know you could do or that they needed. Number 3, take proposal bootcamp. It's too big to cover in this one answer. It's a multi-day workshop. It's only like 3 hours a day, but it's still spread out over a couple of days because there's a lot to it. Number 4, consider starting with a productized service that sets the standard for your rate and gives you and them a feel for working together. Number 5, publish a hidden rate page. And number 6, make that rate page public. That is how I recommend you deal with this non-problem of having prospective clients ask you, how much does it cost to hire you? It's a good problem to have. Thanks for watching. If you've got a question for a future Ask Joe, be sure to leave it in the comments. If you want to dive deeper into what we talked about today, head over to copyhackers.com or follow the links in the description. And be sure to like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you never miss another Ask Joe.